All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to join us here with Ask ProVisor this month. Yes, if you've been following us, I am not James Mercado. He is absent today on a little vacation, so I'm filling in. My name is Ritchie Baumann. I'm a loan officer here at ProVisor, and I'm going to host our topic today on a home inspector. Why do we do this? Ask ProVisor is something that we put together to help real estate agents differentiate themselves so that you can bring value through your knowledge. And when you're talking with your customers, you just elevate that hierarchy of expertise that you bring to them as you go about and help them find a house or sell a house. So we hope you find these beneficial. You can search us on YouTube to Ask ProVisor, and you'll see past ones that we've had with a title company or a underwriter, and we've had an appraiser in. So we'll tell you at the end here some more new ones that we got coming up after this. So today, though, we're privileged to have Dave Nason with Best Inspections here today. Thanks, Dave.
Good morning, Richie. Good morning, everyone.
I'm going to give you a little resume of why we chose Dave. Dave is been in the home inspection business for 11 years. Prior to that, he was in the construction industry for 25 years. He is also president of the Wisconsin Association of Home Inspectors, and every Saturday morning from 7 to 9 on 620 AM WTMJ, you can see him as the host of the Fix It Show. So I think we got someone pretty knowledgeable. So I don't know any other qualifications you could rack up there, Dave, but I'm sure you got a few more.
I do have a few more.
All right. So, okay. As we talked, Dave, what we do here is we got questions from our real estate agent people that we reach out to just kind of go through what they want answered. If you're on the webinar, you can always, in the chat box, you can send us a question and we'll get handed that and we'll try to address that for you as well. So Dave, just tell me overall, like when you go to a house, what's the purpose of a home inspection? Let's just set that baseline.
So the general basis is to provide a visual inspection of the readily accessible components of a home.
Okay.
With the intent of providing a written report of the findings of that inspection.
Okay. And what does that help a home buyer with?
So what we're going to do is educate the buyer on the home. I always encourage buyers to attend an inspection. They don't have to, but I always encourage them to attend so that they can learn about the home, see the home. They're going to spend a few hours there with the inspector. They should be at least spending a few hours there, okay. At least. And we're going to go through every part of the home. And as I said, it's a visual inspection. So we're going to be looking closely at every part of the home. And as realtors mostly know, the component is every part of the home. So a roof's the component, windows, those are components. So depending on weather, time of day, other things, I typically start with the exterior of the home. We'll walk around the outside, looking at everything on the outside, and then I do the roof. Buyers are not allowed to follow us on the roof, and that's an insurance thing.
Sure.
Just because as inspectors we're insured, but not the buyer's not insured. So, and then we go inside and we look through everything inside. And again, many buyers today are really not that knowledgeable about a home and what it takes to take care of a home and own a home. I think there's a little bit difference generationally about how at least I grew up learning from my grandfather, father, how to do things, how to be handy around home.
Yeah.
And I do think we're losing that a little bit. So many people especially first-time home buyers, really are looking very much for that education of what the home is like. So that, and I tell people, I want you to be there so that you learn all this. And the day you move in, you don't look around and go, how do I work these things?
Yeah.
Where's the furnace? Where's the electrical panel? How do I turn things on and off? Oh, water's leaking. How do I turn the water off?
Sure.
We're going to point all those things out to you as a buyer, but also let you know and how to maintain things.
Okay.
Changing your furnace filter, cleaning your gutters, caulk and paint, those kind of things. But unfortunately, we do find larger things too.
Sure.
Hopefully we don't, but sometimes we do.
Okay. I'm used to knowing that usually it's the home buyer that is wanting the home inspection. Correct. Do you get situations where real estate agents call you from the listing side and they want a home inspection before they actually list it?
Yes. Personally, I don't get so many from the listing agent.
Okay.
Every now and then, you mentioned that I'm on the radio. A lot of the listeners to my show call me up for that pre-listing
They
inspection.
do.
Yes.
Okay.
AM radio Saturday morning is probably a little bit older crowd.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
your kids and my kids are not
Not
listening
listening
to
to
AM
that.
radio on a Saturday morning. So so typically it's people who have been in their home for a good long time, 20, 30, 40 years. And now they're either thinking of downsizing or moving into a retirement home or some other kind of thing. And so they want to know what the condition of their house is prior to putting it up for sale.
Interesting.
So I do have a number of pre-listing inspections
Okay.
on my calendar regularly.
Very cool. So first question we got, and you know, I'm used to seeing that, and it sounded like you said too, a real estate agent is typically the one that they know is home inspectors and try to help the homeowner, the home buyer to pick someone.
Right.
What qualifications, what standards do you think they should be caring about when it's a home inspector? Because, you know, every industry has it. They have people who are new to it, people who are well experienced. Give them some guideline of questions they could ask a home inspector to know that they're going to get a quality product.
Right. Yeah. The analogy is always, what do you call the person who graduated at the bottom of his class in medical school?
A doctor.
Doctor. So, yeah, I mean, for a home inspector, we have to be registered with the state.
Okay.
The state law requires, the only person who can call themselves a home inspector or do a home inspection is somebody who's registered. The term licensed and registered kind of are used interchangeably, but technically it's registered. So you at least have to have that.
Okay.
In 2021, some new legislation was passed, Act 17, that changed a little bit on how we have to, a little bit on our inspection, but mostly on our reports and some of the things. Maybe we'll get into that yet. But the main thing I wanted to mention here is that as of that date, if you want to be a home inspector in Wisconsin, you have to go through a minimum of 40 hours of training.
Oh, okay.
And 20 of those hours have to be what they term is hands-on training. And the Wisconsin Association of Home Inspectors puts on a class like that, where it's classroom and then we go to a house.
Okay.
And you train at a house. So you need to have at least that certification or
Okay.
registration. Other things really, if you can find out, and this would be probably by looking on an inspector's website or referrals or something. They don't have to, but would it be a good idea? As I do have a number of years of construction background, or in a trade at least, that you can, or that you do know a lot about homes. I have a degree in architecture from UWM.
Okay.
I didn't go into an architecture office right away, but I got into construction. So I swung a hammer for a couple of years. I designed, build work. I worked for a fire and water restoration contractor, a commercial contractor. These things all really taught me how houses are built.
Sure.
And even what goes into them. I think the fire and water restoration experience really taught me about how houses get damaged and then how we repair them.
Okay.
So that was a really good experience. Again, you don't have to have all that experience, but it's good to know.
It's good to know
Yeah.
if they have a home inspector they like to use is, if they haven't taken the time to go, hey, tell me about yourself.
Right.
So I know how you help the customer. It
Right.
might be a wise idea to know their background.
Right. I think it's somebody who is if you don't have that strong construction background, at least somebody who is very attentive.
Okay.
I was mentored by an inspector, and so he told me, when you walk up to a home, you have to make sure you turn on all your senses.
Okay.
You're obviously, it's a visual inspection, but you also want to be smelling, make sure you're smelling things, you're hearing things, feeling things. I'm constantly going through an inspection. I hear a noise. I'm like, what was that?
Sure.
And if it's just something, okay, furnace turned on and it may not, fine, but I want to know what's going on while I'm in the house.
Okay.
And also, they should be a good communicator, not only verbally to the buyer while you're in the home,
Yeah.
but they have to be able to write a good report.
Never would have thought of that one
Yeah.
when you say communication. That makes sense.
Those writing communication skills.
Okay.
it being able to explain things. There are primarily two different types of reports. I don't know if we get into this, where it's more like kind of check boxes, something present, basic. You're just kind of clicking through a report. And then my report's a commentary style. I think we're moving more and more towards that, where it's written out comments on the condition of things.
Okay. So in that, with a home inspector, is there any type of, the question was, what kind of assurance does a buyer have an inspector is doing a thorough inspection? I mean, I would think every industry has it. They have different levels of people and information they communicate or don't communicate. Right. But is there some things they could look at the report and go, I don't think this person checked this house deep enough?
Right. So assurances about that, checking referrals is a good way, whether it's from friends or, as you mentioned, from the realtor. Even things like Google reviews, I think, are good ways. Asking for a sample report is from the inspector is a good way, and you can see that report. The state of Wisconsin does regulate everything that a home inspector does. I kind of mentioned that before.
Yeah.
So we have standards of practice, and when I schedule an inspection, the buyer gets a confirmation email, an inspection confirmation email from me, talks about a few things, and attached to that email is a copy of our current standards of practice.
Okay.
Do most people read that? Probably not.
Probably not.
But it's there for their reference if they want. They can read exactly. And if whenever you have standards or something, it's a minimum. It's a minimum. We have to do these things.
Okay.
And I would say most of your better inspectors, including myself, are going to go above and beyond that minimum.
Yeah.
There's certain things you don't have to do. For example, we talked about roofs a little bit. As an inspector, I do not have to go on the roof to inspect the roof.
Okay.
So it says right in our standards, not required. I do have to put in my report how I inspected the roof.
Okay.
If I stood on the ground and looked at it, if I used binoculars, if I put my ladder against the gutter and just looked at it there, or if I walked on the roof. We have to tell people how we did it.
Yeah.
But obviously, if I don't go on the roof, the inspection is going to leave a little more limited.
Yeah.
Or if you used a drone, more and more guys are using drones.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
Inspect the roof. But, so assurances, it really comes down to finding somebody who's been around. Now, when you're starting out, that can be hard. It's one of those things. You're applying. Everybody's probably applied for a job, and they want 2 to 5 years of experience. Well, how do you get that experience if you don't have a job?
Yeah.
So the best way, as I was very fortunate, is to have somebody mentor me.
Okay.
And come along and give you that experience to get started in the inspection industry.
Okay.
Joining organizations really kind of gives you a little bit of validity kind of thing. I currently belong to not only WAHI, but also ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors.
Okay.
And they have a certification level.
Yeah.
A certified inspector. You have to do at least 250 inspections. And then you submit, like 20 addresses. And they have a panel, and they say, well, we want a report from that one and that one and that one. So it's completely random.
Okay.
They look at your reports, and if you meet that level, then you get that certification.
Okay. So that's another thing they can check on the person.
Right.
On the sample report that you said, which great idea. I never even would have thought of that. Is it an actual somebody else's house? Like, are you blocking out some private information, or is it just a generic template to see what they do?
I mean, it's supposed to be a private report.
Yeah.
I think if you do block out all the information, it's Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. It's very easy with the software that we have these days that I can go in and I can pull up a report and I can save a copy of it, and then I can just go enter generic addresses and things like that. The pictures that we have in the report, at least in mine, you got pictures of the outside, but there's nothing personal in these pictures. And I tell people that I'm going to be taking pictures during the inspection. I'm not taking pictures of your stuff.
Yeah.
It's really we got a broken window or we got a plumbing leak or something. And so it's hard for people. It's not like somebody could take my report and
Figure it out.
and get it, invade somebody's privacy.
Sure. Okay. So home inspection's done. The homeowner buys the house and now they find something.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, and they find something at a level that they're kind of upset.
Right.
Right.
That happens.
And they're thinking about all the people they can blame for what happened. Do they want to blame the homeowner? Do they want to blame the real estate agent? Do they want to blame the lender? And do they want to blame the home inspector? Right. So obviously you're the home inspector. It's like, so what if that happens? Okay.
Mhm.
Whether something that happened was in the report or it was absent from the report, can you kind of speak to what is a home buyer's situation after they own the home as it relates to a home inspection?
Sure. Well, what I would advise a buyer is first thing they should call the home inspector.
Okay.
Just, hey, we found this. You got to, I'd like them to keep in mind that they hired the home inspector to inspect the home for them.
Okay.
So the inspector was working for them.
Yep.
So at least initially, keep that kind of mind frame. This inspector is working for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them to see if they can help me. Now, if it does come out that, okay, there's something the inspector missed, well, okay, now they got to work it out. But at least initially, don't go into a phone call. Hey, you missed this, angry kind of thing. Hey, I found this. What can you help me with? What can you tell me? Part of the reason for that,
Mhm.
because as I mentioned, we have standards where if the person hasn't read the standards for what's required in a home inspection, it is possible that what the person has found
Yeah.
was not something that the home inspector would have been required to inspect for.
Okay.
And maybe an example would be maybe a hazardous material.
Okay.
You're not required to inspect for hazardous materials.
Gotcha.
Hazardous being like asbestos and lead paint and
Okay. I was thinking like a 55-gallon drum of oil.
that and so the other thing is anything underground.
Okay.
Or maybe here's a better one, a little more realistic, a sewer lateral that backs up.
Okay.
They're in the home family moves in and they're there for a little while and then the sewer lateral backs up. So it actually happened to me and they get in the home, that's the sewer lateral. Well, during the inspection, I'm flushing toilets, running water and everything, but I'm not using water the way a 4-member family or 5-member family will.
Sure.
They get in, they're doing laundry, doing all these things. And now the sewer lateral can't handle all that water. And maybe the house was vacant for a time.
Yeah. It didn't have much usage on
or
it.
somebody older was living there and used very little water.
Yeah.
But over time, there is a clog. We are not required to inspect any underground plumbing.
Okay.
So the homeowner might be all upset. They have a big, expensive plumbing bill from a plumbing contractor to either clear the drain or repair the drain. But as much empathy that I can have for them
Yeah.
and the big bill that they have, it's not a home inspector's responsibility.
Gotcha.
So that's why, go into it where, hey, can you help me with, and if they haven't done anything, maybe that home inspector has a referral or somebody that is like, oh no, I've heard some things about that contractor, don't use them,
Yeah.
use this one. And maybe it's because somebody I have some kind of relationship with, they might be willing to work with you on a price. So reach out to your inspector as a
partner
first.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it does happen where an inspector will miss something. And then if you're a member of the Wisconsin Association of Home Inspectors, we have an inspection agreement that,
Okay.
and most home inspector insurance companies require an inspection agreement to be signed.
Yeah.
And that spells a lot of things. And in that agreement is an arbitration process.
Okay.
So instead of going to court, we go to an arbitration process that's binding.
Gotcha. All right, folks, this is Ask ProVisor. We're here with Dave Nason of Best Home Inspections. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat so we can try and answer them during this show. This is recorded, so it'll go up on our YouTube channel for ProVisor so that if you miss part of it or you want to share it with other coworkers of yours and real estate agents, you can do that. Dave, so speak to a listing agent a minute.
Mhm.
Okay. A listing agent's going to a house, they're want to prep the homeowner how they can get them a great price, and they're going through the house. And it is hard to critique a house. Okay.
Mhm.
This is somebody's home. I always say that a house is 2x4s and shingles and that, but once you're in it, you're making it a home, and that's personal, right?
Right.
So can you just name, like, when you think of home inspections you've done, the top 5 things that you see most commonly are issues for houses that a listing agent could know that when they go to a house, what are these 5 things that they could go look at to help the home seller understand these are the bigger ones that happen?
Right. So back in 21, when I mentioned our standards changed a little bit, was the definition of a defect.
Okay.
They changed that. And so a defect now for a home inspector is something that's a safety or a health hazard
Okay.
for an occupant of the home, or if the condition of a component would adversely affect its life. So the safety hazard is the biggest thing.
Okay.
So when I think of safety hazards, one of the most common things are electrical issues.
Okay.
Most people understand that in a kitchen or a bathroom, we have these outlets that have a test and reset button on them.
Yep.
Those are called GFCIs. They weren't around in houses that are built in the 50s and 60s and even the early 70s. And so if a house hasn't been updated,
Mm-hmm.
those won't be there.
Okay.
A building inspector will say, well, that's grandfathered because
Yes.
the house was built at that time. A home inspector should be calling that a safety hazard.
Okay.
Because it's a safety hazard, it's a defect. And so GFCIs
GFCIs.
are life safety devices. They will prevent you from getting electrocuted.
Okay.
So electrical are fairly simple things that can be upgraded. Maybe an electrical panel might be out of date too. There's certain types of electrical panels that we just call out as safety hazards, something called a Federal Pacific stab lock panel. And I would think probably most realtors have heard of that.
Yeah.
If you still have one of those, they're a safety hazard.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So things like electrical would be number one.
Okay.
Windows.
Okay. What about windows?
If you have a larger home, and like all the Brookfield homes, the Waukesha homes here that have casement windows.
Okay.
And probably from the 80s or 90s, wood casement windows. And these houses sometimes have 35, 40, almost 50 windows in them.
Yeah.
If you're not opening those windows occasionally, they can start to rot on the bottom.
Gotcha.
And so going around, opening your windows, maintaining your windows, because if anybody's talked to a contractor lately about replacing windows in the house, it's amazing what the price of windows can be.
Yeah.
So I say electrical, windows, pop your head in the attic. Just
Okay. Look
Look.
in the attic.
just look to see.
Shine a flashlight.
Yeah, shine a flag. If you see any kind of staining, black staining, dark staining, or anything,
Okay.
that would be a home inspector is going to see that and say something.
Okay.
If you can have evaluation of your roof, and then probably number 5 would be the foundation. If you can get any kind of look at the foundation, are there cracks, are there stains? Put a level on the wall and see if the walls, in or out.
I would have not thought of that one.
Yeah, that's most people have a level.
Yeah.
I don't use a laser to measure foundation walls. Experts, engineers use lasers. I'm not an expert foundation person. So, and then a 6th thing,
Yeah.
escape my foundations and your HVAC equipment.
As I was just going to say, but that's what it was.
If somebody moves into a house built, especially like right now, maybe a house built in the late 90s, and it's all really good and everything, there's a potential that furnace and air conditioner are still original.
Okay.
And now you're looking at maybe $5,000 to $12,000 depending on if you're replacing both things.
Yeah.
That can be a problem for people who are getting in the house on, we can just afford this house.
Yeah.
But I can't afford a $10,000 or $12,000 worth of HVAC equipment next year, or for that matter, a $25,000 roof.
Right.
So
I
would say that's a top 6.
That's a good list, because that's something that can be easily checked.
Right.
They don't have to go deep into it,
Right.
But at least now you're understanding with the homeowner of what the homeowner can now understand. This is stuff that gets looked at.
Right.
you know, and how are we going to answer to it?
For the HVAC equipment, the listing agent might consider, okay, we're going to offer a home warranty because the equipment's a little older.
Yeah.
That's one possibility.
Okay. It's funny when you mentioned number 5 with the foundation, we got a question from the chat. It says, how does a home inspector look at a fieldstone basement versus a concrete poured basement? Is there a difference when you evaluate it?
Sure. So a poured concrete foundation is going to be a modern basement.
Yep.
And that poured concrete basements rarely have significant problems. They can, but mostly what we're going to see is shrinkage cracks in the concrete, which is very common.
Okay.
And so what we're looking there is there any movement? Engineers will talk the term planar differential. So if you have a plane, if there's a crack, if there's one side's in or out or something, there's been movement.
Okay.
So if there's not any movement and if there's no moisture standing around the crack, it's really not a concern.
Okay.
Keep an eye on it. We would say monitor it or anything. A fieldstone foundation, now we're talking 100-year-old house.
Yeah.
Also that poured concrete foundation by requirement is going to have a drain tile system around it with a sump crock.
Okay.
To collect water. It's probably got foundation insulation and waterproofing on the outside.
Sure.
That fieldstone foundation was built probably by the farmer.
Yeah.
Or farmers.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no waterproofing on the outside. There's no drain tile around it, no sump crock.
Yep.
The only thing that's keeping water out of that basement is the proper grading and drainage around the outside of that house, which most likely is not as good as it should be. And so we basically tell people, if you are buying a house, like an older house, farmhouse or something, you should be expecting at some point that there's going to be at least some seepage coming through this wall. And you can tell really if there's been a lot, the mortar between the rocks is flaking off and coming loose.
Yeah.
It's all stained and things. So, and we really can't measure them. So there's no way to accurately measure a stone foundation wall.
Okay.
Brick walls we can measure, concrete block, but actual stone, they're too uneven to know if it was built like this or if it's moved. I mean, maybe if it's really obvious, an engineer can make an evaluation, but a home inspector is not going to be able to do that.
The second part of the question, and I think my opinion, you answered is one better than the other. And it sounds like the concrete's probably better because it's newer.
Yeah.
And it's got the drain tile and the
Correct.
crack on it, right?
Yeah. But you know what? That fieldstone house has been there 100 years.
That is true.
And with engineers and foundations, there's a bit of a rule of thumb. It's not written in stone, but a rule of thumb. If a foundation has cracks or something, it looks like it's moved a little bit. But if you can document that it hasn't moved in 10 years, it's probably not moving anymore.
Okay.
So if we're talking 10 years, now this house that has the fieldstone is 100 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for houses that are really. My house was built in 1927, and I love it. And interestingly, I have a poured concrete foundation in my 96-year-old house.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, and I suppose that we all like to say like, oh, the good old days when they built stuff, it was a little more solid over. So that makes sense. Okay. Right. Tell me let's talk about moisture and mold and stuff in a house. Like, I mean, if it's on the wall, all right. A real estate agent goes in the house and they see the dirt or they see blackness on the wall. They got to, either it's dirt or it's mold. It's something, right?
Right.
But I've heard the stories of nobody knew there was mold behind the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that a home inspector does or can do to help identify that stuff for people?
So depending on how the inspection's going, if I have a really good rapport with the buyers now, I'll say, well, I got to go get my glasses that I ordered out of the Mad magazine in the back, that are my X-ray glasses, kind of joking, because it's nearly impossible.
It is.
To look inside of a wall.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of a home inspection, we're not allowed to do any damage. I have some equipment that if we have a hole, I can stick. It hooks up to my iPhone, and it's got a little thing, and I can go inside of a wall or something, and I can look. Yeah. But short of there being a hole there already, I can't do that. The other thing is kind of back to the standards. We were talking about maybe somebody finds something, if for a home inspector, we do not inspect for mold. It's not part of our standard.
It's not part of the standard. Oh, okay.
We have to inspect for abnormal presence of moisture or
Okay.
water, which usually turns into a mold if it's not cleaned up or taken care of.
Right.
But mold is
Not on the list.
outside of the scope of an inspection. I am of the opinion, if I see something, I say something.
Yeah. Good.
The other thing is really, and I don't know, it's in the standard or something, but it's really frowned upon if, and most of the listing agents would probably agree, if I, as a home inspector, or if I put in there, I saw mold on the wall or something like that, if I use that term, they say, well, show me the test results.
Oh, sure.
For how you determine
How
that
do you
that's
determine it?
mold. So the only person who can say really, it's an industry, known industry standard. The only person who can say that something is mold, whether it could just be dirt, like you said, it could
Yeah.
just be dirty, is if you taken a sample, a test sample, and looked under a microscope and you have the education or the background to know what it is you're looking at, Stachybotrys or Penicillium, or what, those are the two most common molds in a house that we find. But so when you see water damage, again, you don't want to do any damage to the house or water stain, but most inspectors have at least a surface moisture meter
Okay.
that we carry around. So that can make it, oh, this is still damp. We might have something leaking, whether it's a plumbing leak or roof leak or something.
Yeah.
And so what that inspector should be doing is, at the minimum, if you don't call it a defect, at a minimum, you should be saying that it needs further evaluation.
Sure.
So this needs to be looked at, whether you get information from the seller or you bring in the proper person to do a little bit more investigation. And that might, in some cases, that might involve taking out some drywall or plaster or paneling or whatever the surface is. Yeah.
Home insurance is coming more and more asking about age of roof, right?
Mhm.
And I've heard the situation, the homeowner doesn't know, like the roof was there when I bought it. I
Right.
don't know how, and I've owned
Right.
the house 5 years.
Right.
In your reports, so the question is, how do you calculate remaining life expectancy of certain components of a house?
Sure.
Because I'm assuming when they want that question, you do put that in a report at some level, yes or no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes. So relating to a roof,
Yeah.
I will only put a number or an age or something if it's been provided. Sometimes somebody selling a house, they'll prepare a list. When things were done, the improvements that they've done,
Yeah.
which they're trying to maybe justify the price that they're asking or something. We
Right.
did the roof this year, the kitchen remodel this year, placed the furnace and AC this year, and all this. Like, hey, this is all great. So if it says, if somebody's told me, or listing agent, or maybe even the buyer's agent says, hey, they've said the roof was done in 2021. Well, although if you're in Oconomowoc, most everybody got a new roof in 2022.
Yeah.
So we're pretty sure of that. But if there is no information, the seller doesn't know, nobody says, I will not put in a number. And people say, well, how much longer do you think it has? If what we hear as inspectors, if you say, well, this lasts 3 to 5 years, you're setting yourself up to get sued.
Yeah.
And that's just really it is, because what happens is it doesn't last that long.
Right.
And now they're saying, you said that I
Right.
had this much time, and they want a new roof.
Yeah.
It didn't last that long. The reality is roofs get older, they get weaker, and the shingles blow off. So that's why I tell people, I was like, how long is it going to last? And I'm like, it could have a few years, but but if it's older and we got a lot of granule loss or something, I'm going to say it either needs to be monitored. So I'm telling them, you need to keep an eye on this roof, but also budget for replacement. But if we have damaged shingles or missing shingles, that becomes a defect.
Okay.
An old roof is not a defect. Damaged or missing roof is a defect.
Okay. Follow-up question to that, which may be a little more for me as a loan officer.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the real estate agents will appreciate it as well. And that is in regards to home insurance again. I'm seeing where the insurance agents are asking for the home inspection report so they can determine age of roof, furnace and things like that, right? And we're all leery, like, well, we don't want to tell them everything,
Right.
you know, like,
Right.
who knows what they're going to do? Do you see, and is it allowed that if you were called as a home inspector saying, can we get a limited report that answers these type of questions that the insurance company would like to have third party verified of understanding of age of roof, age of furnace? Would an inspector do that, or is that not allowed?
So if you're asking for a limited report, then it's not a home inspection anymore.
Okay,
So the state of Wisconsin, the standards, if I'm going to do a home inspection, I have to do a full home inspection.
okay,
Now I do some other specialty type inspections. I have some other certifications. If you know what EIFS is, exterior
No.
insulation finish system.
okay,
We mostly see it on higher end homes. It's a foam insulation that has a stucco like finish to it. Stone veneer. I have a certification to inspect that. So I'll do those. But they're hiring me as a consultant or an
Sure.
expert for that.
sure,
If you want just a limited, say, hey, come inspect the roof, tell me the age of things, it would be smart of the inspector to ask them to sign some kind of agreement that says, I'm not doing a home inspection. I'm just here to evaluate. You're hiring me as a construction consultant,
okay,
and I'm only evaluating these items and I'm not providing a report that meets the standards for a home inspection in the state of Wisconsin.
okay. So you answered it in a way I wasn't expecting, and that is if that's needed, like no home inspection was in the offer,
Right.
If that was needed, then you could do that as a consultant.
Right.
I was asking in the mindset of a home inspection was done.
Oh, okay.
We've got the report, the
Okay.
homeowners got buyers got the report, but they don't want to hand that whole 32 pages over. Would a home inspector just give a 1-page synopsis of age of things as a supplement?
It could. Yeah,
Could.
I mean, that information should all be in the report.
In the report
Yeah.
already, yeah.
I don't know if my software allows me to pull out, because I go through my software, I enter information and in photos and things and edit the photos and everything, and then I just click generate report, and it pulls, like you get a 40-page report. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if you can. I'd have to look at that.
Okay, so that's a home inspector by
but-
home inspector choice.
Yeah.
They could ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so they could
Right.
ask. All right. Do you look up permits?
No.
Building permits? No.
No. Now that, again, because we're not code inspectors,
Okay,
we're not doing a code inspection. We're not there to make sure the house meets code.
okay,
There are some pretty easy ways to, in my opinion, my experience, that I can tell if work's been done that wasn't done to code.
okay,
Plumbing issues are certain types of plumbing pipes. You can tell, they didn't use the right pipes here. The inspector would have seen that.
Okay.
Those flexible drains
yeah,
that you can buy at the big box stores and everything. You can buy them locally here, but our Wisconsin plumbing code doesn't allow that.
oh, wow,
Yeah. So if you're going to eat it in a temporary fashion because you're remodeling and now your old sink doesn't line up with the drain, but when you get everything done, now you got to do it plumbing, right? Fine. But that's one thing. Electrical, if you don't have GFCIs in your sinks and stuff, okay, it probably wasn't done with a permit.
Okay.
Another thing too, if electrical wasn't done with a permit, this is if the electrical panel is not labeled or not labeled completely,
yep,
an electrical inspector will not sign off on their electrical permit until that panel is labeled.
interesting.
Now, all the circuits have to be labeled. Somebody has to be able to come to that panel and know what every circuit is for.
Because you think about, like, I've been in my house, like someone hand wrote it, and over
Yeah.
time it just seems to wear away magically. You're like, well, I don't even know what it's for.
Or so somebody's done some extra work.
Yeah,
So things like that are so what I recommend, and actually I have a general comment in my report, and I have a couple different types. If there's been a lot of obvious work,
yeah,
I'll say somebody needs to go to the local municipality and see what permits were pulled.
okay,
And if it doesn't really look like it, I'll just say, sometimes homeowners do large or smaller projects, consider checking with either the owner, the seller, or the local municipality if permits were pulled. But it's not a home inspector's responsibility.
you when we talk permits, and I've thought about this in the past, and maybe it's another Ask ProVisor, and I don't know who the guest is, but to help agents understand, like, should you're taking a listing, should you be going to look at proper permits were done? Because I've heard where people have done extensive rehab and they never went and pulled permits. And now the new homeowner owns the house and they want to go get a permit. And all of a sudden, like, the building inspector goes, hey, where's this fourth bedroom coming from?
Yeah.
And now what does the new homeowner do? That's another probably subject for another day. But
There's a question on the condition report that the seller's supposed to fill out.
supposed to say,
Has any work been done in the home without a permit?
okay, agents, I don't read
Yeah.
your real estate
Yeah.
condition reports that respect.
So they're supposed to disclose any known work
okay.
that was done requiring a permit was done without a permit.
So to the real estate condition report, let's try that little tangent as it relates to a home inspection. Do you want to see that? Do you get to see it? Do you not want to see it?
I will typically ask to see a copy of the condition report.
Okay.
Sometimes I forget, but if there are things that are disclosed on there,
Yeah.
I have a section in my report where I'll put that in there.
Okay.
Such and such was disclosed by the seller. Sometimes there are things that were disclosed by the seller that may have been fixed,
Okay.
and so the day of the inspection, there's no problem.
Okay.
But if it comes back that and I guess unfortunately, we shouldn't be writing our home inspection report to protect myself.
Right.
I'm there to write a report that provides information for the seller.
Sure.
But I have to in a way have to protect myself that if something's been fixed and it's on the day of the inspection, it's fine, but that repair doesn't last,
Mhm.
or so in 6 months or something, let's say it's a major plumbing repair, the sewer lateral or something, seller disclosed sewer lateral was repaired on such and such a date. Well, 6 months later, it's bad again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they can't come to me and say, well, how come you didn't see that? I say, well, they disclosed
They told you
that it was that. And on the day of the inspection, there was no visual defects.
Okay.
So yeah,
Awesome.
I do like to see that.
Okay. Two
But
more.
the reality is a lot of times there's nothing on a condition. It's like, oh, this house is perfect.
Two more questions. We're going to be wrapping it up here soon, folks. Someone asked, where do you make the cutoff between a mild, intermediate, and critical problem?
So those are terms that we don't use
Okay.
in home inspection. There's really 5 that, again, back to the change in the standards, maybe prior to 2021, but now we have a summary page that the state requires us to put. It's either a defect,
Okay.
it needs further evaluation, it needs repair, it needs just maintenance, or it needs monitoring. And I'll try to answer this quickly, but most people understand that they have to take care of their car.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand what it takes to maintain a house, but they got their car. So a defect in your car, maybe your brakes are going bad or something. Well, if you can't stop, you're going to get in an accident. So that's a defect. Okay, yeah, I get that. If they're going bad, their condition is, adversely affecting the life of their, so that's a defect.
Okay.
Your car, you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden starts making a noise. And you're like, oh, what's that noise? That sounds like it's coming from the engine. And you think, okay, that needs further evaluation. You got to take it to the mechanic to have them look at it. It could be just a matter of tightening up a belt that's a little loose.
Okay.
Or it could be like, oh, you got a bad head gasket here. We need a new engine.
Okay.
It could be good or it could be okay or bad. You don't know.
Right.
An expert needs to look at it.
Okay.
Or it could just be something that needs repair, a broken tail light, a broken window. You just got to get it fixed.
Okay.
And once it's fixed, you're good and back to the new.
Okay.
Things need maintenance. You need to change the oil in your engine, or if you don't, you're gonna be alongside the road, broken down, maybe a new engine needed. And then things that need to be monitored. Tire tread wear. You got to keep an eye on your tire tread. Well, I can compare those all to a house. Electrical issues are a safety hazard. That's a defect. Something that needs further evaluation, a foundation problem. Something, we need an engineer to look at it. Maintenance. Everybody has to, or repair. Again, a broken window, broken door hardware. These are simple things that just need to be fixed. Maintenance. You got to change your furnace filter. if you don't change your furnace filter regularly, your furnace isn't going to last as long as it should.
Right.
You got to do caulk and paint are maintenance items, cleaning gutters, those are maintenance items. And then monitoring when your roof gets old, when your furnace and air conditioner get old, you got to keep an eye on them and then budget for new ones, because it's much easier to stand in your basement when your furnace is running and talk to a heating contractor and make a decision on what my next furnace is going to be.
Yeah.
Instead of the day that it's not running and it's 0 degrees outside. And the last thing you have is time to make a decision. You just need heat.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Okay.
So the terms that you use, I personally don't use them. I know some people used to, but we're down to that defect. The ones I mentioned.
Very good. And then any opinion on, so agents are writing an offer to buy a house, and there's that section that talks about home inspection. I don't know how often you've read those. Just wondering if you have any wisdom for real estate agents when they're writing offers as it relates to a home inspection.
Right. So something to keep in mind all the time is that everything's fixable.
Okay.
That's, I don't think I'm the type of inspector that I'm going to make, oh, this house is, can't be sold. I'm not making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Everything can be fixed. Now it's just a matter of determining, okay, how is it going to be done? Who's going to take care of everything? So for a buyer's agent who's writing an offer, maybe they write an offer that has, and they have to understand their client, where they're at. Maybe their offer says, you know what, we would like a home inspection, but we'll take care of the first $5,000 or maybe $10,000 worth of items that are found during the inspection. 10,000 is getting a little up there, but 5,000, that's gonna deal with some minor maybe you need an electrician to come in and replace some outlets or do something. It could potentially deal with a service upgrade if the panel's bad, but mostly it's those little things. I guess the term would be ticky tack. You don't want to come back to the seller. We want you to fix these little things, because there's no house that's perfect.
Right.
But what that allows, if we do find some significant problem, and probably the significant problems are going to be a roof that's really bad. And most of the time people know they have a really bad roof, but a lot of times people don't know they have a really bad basement or foundation. Yeah. That's where we can get into large problems with, okay, if they got a lot of stuff in their basement and they haven't seen their foundation walls, and we'll ask, hey, can you have stuff moved away from the walls so we can see the foundation? Or at a minimum, I'm looking between things and I see a problem. I'll say it needs further evaluation. The foundation contractor comes in and they see that the wall is sheared off at the base and it's got all these cracks, and we got to excavate this wall, and then we got to put beams in. And while we're doing that, we're going to do the drain tile. And all of a sudden it's legitimately a $25,000 repair.
Yeah.
Well, that's beyond that $5,000. That's a big cost that somebody's going to have to bear. And I guess usually it's the homeowner. Yeah, has to take care of that. So that might be something that a listing agent or buyer's agent could do in their offer. Okay. The inspection is really important. Yeah. I mean, people ask me, do you think we should get an inspection? I said, well, you are asking a home inspector. Right. Yes, you should have a home inspector. You should have one. Very good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Yes. If you've got questions, you want to get a hold of Dave, your website is bestinspectionsllc.com. Correct. Okay, glad I got that right. You can reach out to him if you have questions for us. You can email james@provisor.com. We can get the questions to Dave and we'll get them answered for you. Coming up next month, we're going to have Nicole Kane from WEDA, Wisconsin Housing Economic Development Association. It is one of the loan types in Wisconsin that's helped a lot of home buyers. And it's just, they've really evolved their program over time. And we're just going to have her come in and just kind of share where WEDA's at and how that can help home buyers here in the whole state of Wisconsin. And the month after that, we're going to have a home insurance agent come out and just talk about home insurance as it relates to buyers. So thank you for joining us here at Ask ProVisor, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.